Welcome to the Sober Unicorn. We are a gay-hosted, all-inclusive podcast about sobriety and addiction recovery for the LGBT plus community and all of our allies. I'm your host, Holden, and thank you for joining us today. Well, hello there, everybody. This is Holden again back here with the Sober Unicorn. Hopefully, everybody is doing absolutely fantastic. And if you're not, hopefully your day does get better or your week gets better. There's always room for improvement. So today, we have a guest that I recently met. Me and her have only known each other for a few weeks since moving here to Florida. And we have discussed relationships here on the podcast before with Sober Sex with Shiva, but we're wanting to kind of take a turn and discuss how er, relationships and early sobriety, pros, cons, and kind of what people's thoughts are. And of course, Miss Forrester here did go into a relationship in early sobriety, and so we're wanted to bring her on and kind of discuss her experience with that. So, hello, Forrester.
Hello.
How are you doing this morning?
Good.
Good.
Very,
Well,
very
other than
tired.
yeah, I was gonna say, other than being morning time, and neither one of us are a morning person. I actually like barely. I was like almost passed out taking a nap again, and I was like, oh my god, it's almost 10 o'clock.
I had my phone. I just kept hitting snooze. I had like 5 alarms between 9 and 10.
I do the same thing. Thank God, like the house that I'm in right now, like the sun comes through my window in the morning, so like directly into my eyes when I in bed. So it actually helps me wake up in the morning. So to kind of give everybody like a history about you, why don't you give everybody like a quick recap on um life pre sobriety, and like what finally got you into recovery.
Okay. So I was actually living with my ex-boyfriend right before I came down to Florida. I was living with him and his parents. Um, and well, basically they were done with me because I was a nightmare to deal with. I was in my active addiction. I was super like I had really bad I still do have really bad mood swings, but it was a lot worse. And I was super violent. I caused a whole bunch of scenes at his house, so they were done with me pretty much. I had nowhere to go anymore. I had basically been couch surfing for the past 3 years, and I ran. Nobody wanted me at their house anymore. So I had just gotten out of treatment. I relapsed for 3 weeks, and then my parents convinced me to go to treatment. It took a lot for them to actually get me to go because I was not planning to get clean whatsoever. I was just like, fine, 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 I'll go because I had nowhere to live. So I was just like, all right, I'll go, whatever. And yeah, I mean, even after I said that, it still took like I missed my flight 3 times before I actually got to Florida. But but yeah, I mean,
Oh
my
my
life
gosh.
was very miserable though. Before I came down here, um I mean, my story I feel like is a little bit different from most people's because I'm so young. I really only did hard drugs for like 3 years. I definitely had a problem before that, um but yeah, things became like my life went out of control right away. Like I I relapsed on meth, which I had never done before. Um when I was 17, and then within a matter of like a month, I was a complete shit show. Like um moved out of my parents' house, got a job as a stripper on my 18th birthday. Like um yeah, I was just like things went downhill very quickly for me,
Well, and
basically.
especially becoming a stripper, like that. I mean, I can't speak for the entire stripper community, but from my understanding, that kind of job and scene, you're constantly surrounded by drugs. For one, to maintain a physique that you feel that the client needs, and for two, like your clients could be like in VIP section, like, hey girl, you want a bump? Um, so I think like in active addiction, becoming a stripper is probably the worst thing to do. Um, but so treatment, of course. So where are you originally from?
I'm from DC, the DC area. I'm from
Okay,
Arlington,
okay.
Virginia.
So you're not like super far off from where you're from. Um, so you came down to South Florida, of course, to get clean. Do you think that the success in your recovery is based on you going to treatment?
I do. Um, I mean, I don't obviously treatment doesn't keep you clean, um, but I still didn't like it. It took a while for me to actually want to stay clean. Like I was in treatment for 43 days, and then I was in an IOP house and in like a halfway house, but only for when you're in IOP, and then you leave after that. And then I was there for 2 months. So I feel like it really like it took me a while to actually want to get clean. So I feel like I needed that time. If I had only gone to like detox or something, I would have ended up going back home and then relapsing again because I would have gone home to a boyfriend who was using, which is what happened the first time I went to treatment. I got out of treatment and went back to living with somebody that was using. So obviously I'm going to fucking use, but yeah.
So, like you just said that you didn't want to get clean for a while. So, what made you finally want to get and stay clean?
Um I mean, I don't know exactly like when the switch was in my brain, because it was still really it was when I got out of treatment, it was very difficult for me for like a couple months there. I just was like had no friends. Well, I wasn't putting effort into making any friends, but I was just like miserable for the first couple months I was out of treatment. um but I feel like in treatment, um like I my life was just so miserable before, so I think like I just started to realize that like I really have only two options here. Like I would the where I was headed, like I probably, so when I first relapsed, um I I was like I think I am an addict, but I'm gonna just probably use for another decade and then I'll go back to meetings basically. um like because my whole mom's side of the family, they're all addicts or alcoholics. So I really like have always believed that a 12-step program works, just because that's just how I was raised, I guess. um but I don't really know, like, yeah, I was just like, I'm gonna use for another decade and then I'll go back to meetings. But that's not realistically what, like, I think I realized that like that's not the reality of the situation. I used hard drugs for 3 years and like I could not function whatsoever. How am I supposed to use for another decade? Like, also, even I wouldn't even have even been able to use for another decade. I would have died before then. So
Yeah,
yeah.
because you are like, let me tell you. I mean, you said that you relapsed on meth. Like, you are a tiny individual already. Um, like frame wise, so it's like I can't even imagine like how you looked on methamphetamine. You're probably Skeletor, Jesus. Um, so of course you get into recovery, you finally want to stay sober, and I think again, yes, going through treat. I did not personally go through treatment, so this is just observations with speaking to people. But going through treatment is fucking rough. I mean, you're detoxing, you're immediately forced to go to meetings, forced to do this, forced to speak with counselors. But once you get out and you stay sober for a little bit, and you surround yourself with other sober people, you see the happiness and the smile on other people's face that are in recovery, and you actually see your own life start turning around. And then that's, to me, that's when I kind of wanted it. When I
Yeah.
first went into recovery, I was very much so like, okay, I went in for alcoholism. And it's like, let me stop for 6 months. I said, okay, let me get a grip on it. Let my tolerance lessen. And then I said, I'll go back out. Like I immediately did not plan on staying stopped. And but it was like once I started getting into recovery and I noticed how much better I was sleeping, how much more money I had in my bank account, how much more successful I was becoming at work and stuff like that. I was just like, holy shit, like why didn't I do this at a younger age? I mean, you I praise. I mean, I'm still young, people, so I mean if you want to holler. But I'm 31 and I went into recovery at the age of 30, I think I was. Um you went in at such a young age. I praise people that do that because they have that mentality of I'm young, I could do this for another 10 years. Like I don't want to get sober till I get older. Like I want to live in my 20s and party it up and fuck shit up and be reckless. And it is great to see younger people um that want to get it together and like be successful in their fucking 20s. So of course now you have some sober time under your belt now. And per this episode topic, let's dive right into the fact that Miss Worcester started 13 stepping. So, of course, um, did your sponsor advise you against dating?
Um, so I switched sponsors when I had about 6 months. And well, we weren't actually dating, but she knew about that I was talking to him at that time. And um, what she told me was if anything that becomes before your recovery is a problem, basically. So if he's not coming before your recovery, um, then it's not a problem. And at that period, like at that time when she told me that, I was really only seeing him once a week. I was seeing him on Fridays, and my curfew was what was my curfew? It was either 12 or 1. So I would just see him after work for a couple of, he got off work at 10. So I would see him for like 2 hours a week. Like that was literally it. The rest of my week was not even thinking about him. You know what I'm saying? So she didn't, I mean, we started spending more time together once we had more time, and then it started to become a problem. So we've had to talk about that. And try to set boundaries with each other and see each other not as often, because that's when it becomes a problem. That's when it's like, oh, do you want to go to the 10 o'clock? And I'm like, no, not today. That's that, like, I can see how that becomes a problem. You know what I'm saying? Because yeah.
Well, so was it your first sponsor that said this, or was it the second sponsor?
It was a second
Okay.
sponsor.
So the thing is with 13 stepping, if anybody doesn't know what 13 stepping is, um, in any really 12-step program, no matter which one you choose to go to, they advise against dating in your first year of recovery, or they advise somebody that has over a year recovery or long-term recovery to date somebody that is in their first year. Um, and the primary reason for this is because we as addicts or alcoholics, well, an alcoholic, you're still a fucking addict, but anyways, um, is you become a different person. The thing is, from who you are when you walk in a 12-step room and who you become a year later, like you are completely different. I mean, I know I am. And I mean, hell, like I'm coming back, of course, from a relapse, and I'm a little bit over about a month and a half in, and I can already tell that like this time in my recovery, like my mental state and how I think about things and process things is so different. And so that's the main reason of to avoid a 13 step, and as well as somebody long-term recovery and somebody short-term. The person in short-term recovery is very vulnerable. They are, I'm I don't want to say weak-minded because that just sounds really fucking awful, but they are very vulnerable because they're possibly detoxing. They are lost in their mind on like what their next step is going to be, and sometimes people can prey on that and for their personal selfish advantage. And so there we go. That's what 13-step is. Um, and but reality is we're human, and there are times, and the thing is, you can't stop love, and you can't stop feelings from happening or finding somebody sexually attracted. So, how long were you in recovery before this friendship became a situationship?
So well, we started talking when I had like 6 months. The only problem with that is that he did not have 6 months. Um, no, I'm just kidding. So I won't tell his share all of his business on here, um, but when he had a lot more time than me, and then he relapsed on kratom for a month. So we started talking after that. So he only technically had um like 90 days or something like that. Um, I mean, he had a lot more time in recovery than me. But obviously, I mean, if you're, it's I mean, it's always up to you what you consider a relapse. It's really about the like if you accident like my friend his dad gave him kratom and he didn't know what it was and he was like super pissed at his dad, but he doesn't count that. Well, at first he was like, "Oh my god, dad, you just threw away all my clean time. I can't believe you did that." Da-da-da. He talked to his sponsor. His sponsor's like, relax. You didn't. You know what I mean? But it's all about the intention behind it. Like he was going to the kava bar every day, lying to everybody, like it's all about the intention behind it. Um, so
What's
yeah,
crazy,
and
I
then
went talking about kava. I went to a kava bar with a friend in recovery, and when I first got here to Florida, and I didn't realize like okay, so if you don't know what kava, well, whatever, we're not gonna go there. You can Google what kava is. But kava is very debatable in the sober realm. Um, Personally, for me, I don't use kava now that I kind of have an understanding of what it is. Um, it like she said, it's all about what you're doing and using it for. Um, Same thing with poppers in the gay community. It's like, why are you choosing to use poppers? So it's like, why are you drinking kava? Why are you doing kratom? Is it to alter your state of mind? Is it to change the way you're feeling? Um, and like an accidental situation. I mean, I've had friends that went to bars with their friends, and like they'll get like a Sprite cranberry, and like it looks very similar, and they'll accidentally pick up their friend's vodka cranberry, and be like, "Holy shit!" But it's also it's how you react from that moment. It's okay. The moment you realize it had liquor in it, did you continue to drink it, or did you stop drinking it?
mhm.
Um, because there are going to be times in our lives where we're out and about at family events, at family parties, where we accidentally pick up the wrong glass. Um, and it just depends on how you go for that. So again, flip it and reverse it like Missy Elliott, and go back to of course he had 90 days.
Mhm.
Um, Let me ask this: who chased who?
Oh, he did. So
Okay,
I was set on being celibate for a year, um, and that did not happen. But but yeah, I kept like even remember telling my friend I was like yeah I was like my friend was talking to me. He was like, I think Keith likes you. I'm like, yeah, maybe, but I'm gonna just wait like a year. He's like, wait a year, then he's gonna like be talking to somebody else. I was like, well, no, that's what I'm gonna do. And then yeah, then he asked me to the movies one time. I was like, oh my god, yeah, let's go. And then he started sending me different movie times, and I was just completely ghosted him. I was like, oh yeah, no, I didn't think that was actually happening. Um, yeah, it was him.
you
Yeah,
ghosted him,
I did ghost him, and then
bro. That is so mean.
we.
So of course you're not ghosting him anymore. Um, how how long were y'all seeing each other before? Okay, let me see where I want to go with this question. Um, okay, we're not going to talk about sex. So, how long were y'all seeing each other before things became more emotionally attached?
Well, I feel like from the beginning, it wasn't like we weren't just trying to fuck. Like he basically he took me out on a bunch of dates first and stuff like that. Like we took it kind of slow, I guess. Um, but I guess we really like. I mean, we really things got like more serious around. Let's see, was things got serious after like 4 months. I think I
Which I
would
mean,
say.
honestly, that's a lot longer than I would have expected. The thing is, the day and age that we live now, especially as addicts, we want something, we want it now. We're very um, the moment we get a small little piece of something, we want more and more and more. And so, for both of you guys to take 4 months, actually, to me, shows that recovery was still very much number one for both of you guys at that time.
Yeah, and oh, I think that I really didn't. I think that um I mean, I don't regret getting into a relationship with him. Obviously, I'm literally still in that relationship. But I do wish that I had like um waited a little bit longer or been more communicated a little bit better with him in the beginning, just because I mean, I had a boyfriend when I came down here to Florida, and I I mean, pretty quickly I realized like no, if I want to stay clean, I can't be with him. Like it's just not going to work. Um because you can't someone who's clean cannot be in a relationship with a using drug addict. It just doesn't work. Like
Newsflash, no.
it doesn't. I've seen like maybe one couple who's gotten clean together in ever. Like it's just not it doesn't usually happen. Like usually one person gets clean and the other person I mean maybe gets clean later, but it's the relationship isn't going to work out. So I did realize that pretty quickly, but I was still talking to him for like months after, not months, like couple months after after I broke up with him. And yeah, and it was just a mess, and I wish that I had waited a little bit to like kind of heal from that before jumping into another relationship. And that's why I was like so hesitant to get into a new relationship. Like um yeah. And I mean also like and that's also become like a I'm not going to share all his business on here, but like I like I which this is not fair, and I've talked to people about this, but you can't hold someone's relapse against them. But yeah, but it makes me like paranoid, and we've had like long talks about it, like um
That if
about
like one party were to relapse while y'all are together, or
well, like cuz he relapsed like 3 months before we started um talking, and and that's like caused problems in our relationship, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But um yeah.
I mean, technically you relapsed too before y'all started talking.
True.
I mean, the relapse started at different times. So I mean, okay. So first, discussing boundaries. Um, why don't you give the listeners that possibly maybe going through the same thing some boundaries that y'all have set that have worked for y'all?
um Let me think. Well, I mean, it's still a work in progress. We're still trying to figure it out. But like I feel like one of the most important things is setting boundaries on how much time you spend with the person. Um because I mean I think just like in general, no matter if even if it's not a romantic relationship, spending all your time with one person is unhealthy. Like a problem that I've had in recovery is make building relationships with women. Like that's something that's super hard for me and it's taken me a super long time. So and that's also something that's important for my recovery, to build relationships with women. Like it has, because I have started to do that, and I feel like that's helped me a lot. Like because there's certain things you just talk about with women that you don't talk about with men, and so I feel like I've been able to build um like the I feel like the relationships that I have, like I have a lot more male friends, but if I'm going to talk if I'm like really going through it, I'm gonna call a woman, you know what I'm
Well,
saying,
female,
for the
yeah.
most part. So yeah, I don't know, that's, I feel like that's the most important thing. Also, I have, like, I don't want my relationship to be like any of my other relationships. So I set these really high expectations in my head, um, which it's fine to have standards, but you also have to understand that, like, that the other person doesn't know. Like me and my boyfriend right now, we're completely different people. Like, and what we expect out of one another is completely different. Like, um, so you have to have, you have to communicate with each other, which that's something that we both have a lot of trouble with. Um, but I mean, we like, um, but
That's
we
just been
will
a
still
work in
sit down.
progress.
Yeah, it's still a work in progress, but we'll still sit down and talk, like we've had a whole ton of long conversations. Um so yeah, I think just having open communication. I mean, I also think there's certain things you just don't talk to your um like, that I don't talk to him about. Like there's certain, because you don't want to make the other, like, you don't want your boyfriend sponsoring you, you know what I'm saying? You there's certain things that I won't talk. It's not like, there's certain things that I have to talk to somebody else about. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
it's the fact of y'all are in a relationship. Y'all are not in a sponsorship. So, of course, yes, y'all want to be there for each other as fellows and as something to lean on in recovery, but you don't want that person controlling your recovery as well. So it's like, yes, there are of course things that y'all probably discuss or bounce ideas off of each other within recovery, but when it comes time for Forrester needing somebody not to sign off on her bullshit and tell her how it is, you don't want that to come from Keith, because if you feel some type of way about him not co-signing your bullshit, then that could eventually fall into problematic things in a relationship, which you don't want that to happen, because of course your recovery is not your relationship. So, like you said, communication is key. And the thing is, you guys, it seems that, because of course, I see how y'all are at meetings, and you know what's so crazy? Um, if the people that I'm about to talk about are listening, hashtag sorry about it. There are relationships in the rooms that I have seen that like the couple consistently sits next to each other. They're always holding hands in the meeting, being all lovey dovey and this and that and the other. And it's like those are the relationships I saw also fall apart, because like their recovery was contingent on them being together in that room. Like you, the two of you, y'all, like I could tell like sometimes y'all sit next to each other, but y'all aren't sitting there like doing PDA in the middle of a meeting. Like, and then other times y'all are like on opposite ends of the room and don't really even talk to each other until y'all are like, okay, bye, have a good night. And so you can tell that y'all make sure that y'all's recovery is a different um situation than y'all's relationship is, which I think is going to benefit y'all in the long run, because if ever relationship comes first or this, that, and the other, then y'all will have that communication like, hey, we're being together a little too much. Like, let's go to a different meeting, or I'm going to start going to a separate meeting. And then you don't feel some type of way about it because your recovery is not based on your boyfriend being present.
And that's also something that, like, I've started to talk about recently. Like the 10 o'clock meeting, we've both always gone to it. So we can't just, neither one of us is going to stop going to that meeting. Like um both of our meeting, I guess.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of people have been breaking up recently, but but like they'll talk after they break up. They'll talk about it like, I'm gonna go to this meeting. This is gonna be my meeting. That's gonna be your meeting. You know what I'm saying? And that's like, I don't think it would be fair for, because we've always both gone to that meeting. We both have a ton of friends at that meeting. Um, and I don't really think it would be fair for, like, if I so anyways,
It's
my
like
point
choosing
is,
sides of friends after a breakup. It's like, no, this is my meeting. You can't go anymore.
yeah, but I mean, my point is that it's also, I think it also is important to go to other meetings. Like, you can't always just go to the same meeting together, because your recovery is should be separate. Um, so whatever, we're both gonna always keep going to that meeting, but especially now that I have a new work schedule, I'm trying to make it like a point to go to, because I used to this is what I would use, like, this is what I did initially. I would go to one meeting, and then I would go to the 10 o'clock meeting. The 10 o'clock meeting is more for me to like socialize and see my friends and stuff like that. And then I would have another meeting to go to. And that's what I'm trying to start doing again. Like, um, yeah, I can still go to that meeting, but I also need to have other meetings that I can go to that he does not go to. Because I used to have a meeting on Wednesdays that I would go to, but then he started going to it. Um, well, but that's just because his work schedule changed too, and he was also able to go to that meeting. I didn't realize that, like, that was a meeting that he went to. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think that's also something that's important. That's probably a suggestion that if you're in a relationship in recovery, that's probably a suggestion that will be given to you to, not always go to meetings with your boyfriend or girlfriend.
Of course. So before we end the episode, I have two questions for you. One is, now that you've actually seen what a relationship is like with somebody in recovery, would you ever, if God, like, I'm not future tripping, but it's like, if forever you were ever become single again, would you date a muggle, aka normie?
Um, I think maybe when I don't think at my age, no. Um, just because I don't know, I think it's hard to find someone, if they're not in recovery, it's hard to find someone age appropriate. That's that's like that respects your recovery. And because I've even had like friends who are, they're trying to be like respectful of it, but they're like, oh, you can't drink, like, can I had this one friend message me, and he apologized because I blocked him in my active addiction. I should have been the one to apologize, because he was basically telling me I had a problem, and I was like, fuck you, da da da. But anyways, um whatever. He texted me, apologized, and then was like, where you live in Florida now, can I come visit you? Or and I was like, yeah, you can come visit me. And he was like, you don't drink? I'm like, I'm in recovery. No, like, it's, and I mean, he was being respectful. He was asking me, to make sure, you know what I'm saying.
To be
But
knowledgeable, yeah.
yeah, but a lot of people don't. It's very difficult for a lot of people to, especially my age, to understand. Like, they're like, oh, you don't smoke. No, I'm in recovery. That means you don't do any drugs. But
It's like,
um,
we vape, we like our nicotine, and we like our coffees.
yes, but yeah, I don't know. I think I've had a lot of I had like I was having a conversation with my friend about this, and she was like, "Oh, I could never date someone in recovery." Like, she's like, I have to date, uh, I have to date normies. Like, it's just, but I don't know. I think like I think it's kind of difficult
But
because
you know what's crazy though? It's um not being able to date somebody in recovery and needing to date a normie makes them realize that seeing somebody sober like makes them take a look at them for themselves. The fact that if they're dating a normie that also drinks, they never have to look at their own drinking and their own music. And so it's like, it's kind of like somebody in recovery that's been through it and gotten through it. Like, it's kind of like a mirror. It's a fucking reflection of what they possibly should be doing, but don't want to admit it yet. So, and then again, when they're ready, the doors will be open, and we will have open arms. So the second question that I have is, of course, you and your man Boo Thang have been through trials, tribulations, a lot of communication, a lot of ups and downs with trying to figure things out, navigate being in recovery and in a relationship. Would you advise, so when you start sponsoring, will you advise against relationships in their first year, or will you say just give the same friendly advice that you were given?
I think I would. I mean, it depends on the situation, the person, I think. But I can't tell well, I don't think that I can tell anyone to do something that I haven't done. Like my sponsor won't tell me to do something that she didn't do herself, but she can still be like, I mean, this could become a problem, you know. So I think that I would probably give the same advice that I was given. Um, you know, and maybe be like, I don't know, take your time with it, get to know the person. Don't just like relationship, like you have to know what you're getting yourself into, because to make it a healthy relationship, it takes a lot of work. Like it's not um because I mean, I always assumed, I'm like, well, if if because every other relationship I've, you know, been in, or for the most part, is like we were in active addiction together, so obviously it was going to be a mess. So I just always assume like, oh, you're in recovery, that it's automatically going to be a healthier relationship, but that is definitely not true whatsoever. It takes a lot of work to make it a healthy relationship. So you have to know what you're getting yourself into. You can't, you know, it's not just as simple as, oh, I like this person, I'm going to get into a relationship with them. It's not that simple, really, at all, because it's also like, I can't, which is a problem that I have. I'll be like, like I'll be like, why haven't you done your step work? You need to pick your step work up. Or I'm like, oh, well, that sounds like a reservation. Like these are, you know, that's things that like I don't need to be telling him. Like that's not my job. And so that's, I don't know. I don't know. I think I
No,
would just say be cautious, you know. You
as
have
you
to know what you're
said,
getting yourself.
you're not his sponsor, he's not your sponsor. You have to make sure, yes, you're there as somebody in recovery, but you're not there to work his program for him. And then you're there as a partner. So it's you gotta find this, like, it's a fucking teeter totter, and it's like one tiny difference could make the whole thing flip over. It's this fine balance that you have to find. So of course, if anybody wants to reach out to you or resonated with your story, how can they get a hold of you?
My Instagram. Oh, what is it? Oh, okay. No, my Instagram is Foes Back in Better. So F it's FOS and then back and then the letter N, better.
And I will also have
Yes.
that linked in the bio of this episode and on the website as well. Thank you, Forrester. I know I gotta cut it because I know you have to get ready for work. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Of course, you have a fabulous day. Okay,
You too.
bye. Thank you again for listening to today's episode. Hit that follow button to be notified about new episodes every week. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Instagram at The Sober Unicorn Podcast or on our website at thesoberunicornpodcast.com. There you will find our episodes as well as our very own sober-owned shop featuring products from small businesses that are sober-owned. And remember, everyone, don't be normal, be a unicorn, but better yet, be a sober unicorn.